not to disrespect the league or anything now, but like I'd still say they'd swap the league title for even a Munster title, like, or even to progress.
Hello, and welcome to the Hurling Show. Joined in studio again. Good to have you back, second week in a row, Dotsy. Yeah, you
haven't sacked me, yeah.
You're licking your wounds a little bit. We'll see how we get on after today. Paudie, you're joining us again. Good to have you back as well.
Cheers, Gizzy.
How were you after yesterday?
Disappointed.
Yeah. 15 minutes in, you're feeling good, I imagine. Things are going well.
Yeah, and then you're hearing the scoreline from minutes then as well. You're like, geez, what's going to happen here today? But it all turned around fairly quick, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what you'd be hoping for the last days, where the bit of magic comes in. I mean, it came in elsewhere. We'll get onto that at some stage. But the hope was that it'd go down the stretch a little bit, and you'd be in with a shout. But the wheels came off really, and like I know you go to 7. The same thing happened with. We were talking about it with Jason Ford, was in the Waterford game in the first game, and he had the chance to make it 7. Like in a 7-point game. Okay, they say 7 or 8 points isn't that much in the game anymore, but still 7 points up, and 12-13 minutes, and the belief is kind of kicking on, and you think, geez, you get the sniff of something magic happening, and you just don't know what'll happen then, but
yeah, exactly. Like, I even remember that instance when we were talking about Jason in the Waterford game, but like Noel's penalty then hitting the post and then getting it was a 6-point turnaround in space 30 seconds, wasn't it? Like, because Cork went down and got the goal then, and the momentum just shifted massively. You could even feel it in the stadium after that, and Tipper it kind of went away from him then after that. But they did a great start in the first 10-15 minutes, and you were saying, geez, if they can keep this going now, because Cork didn't seem to have, the energy at that stage, and they were a bit flat, but
because there's doubts there. Like, I know they did a great performance last week, but there are doubts there still. There had to be doubts within Cork as well. So if you go to 7, you're kind of like you're exploring those a little bit more, and it can change. It can shift the game.
As you said there, 7 is a bigger lead. Like, it looks like harder work to get it back, doesn't it? But it just changed there after 15 minutes, and the wheels came off then for Tip, and our Cork just drove on at that stage then.
Yeah, what went wrong at that stage of your side? What did you stop doing, or did things just kick on for Cork?
I think things kicked on for Cork, but there was no physicality in the game, and that suited Cork. I felt, they were able to play their short passes. Now I know they're after getting a bit more direct as regards hitting the ball into Alan Connolly, a bit more direct than they were probably earlier on in the championship. But they were able to knit their short passing game together, off the shoulder, a bit of hand passing. And Tip just didn't lay a glove in him, which was a bit disappointing. And look, even I know from playing Cork, and Dotsy could over the years as well, that if you leave it open for them, like, they can destroy you in no time. So you have to be physical with them. And unfortunately, Tip weren't yesterday, and it played into Cork's hands massively. And sure, the scoreline speaks for itself really at the end of the day.
I was thinking last week, looking at Wexford's performance, there's always the potential for a big, against Kilkenny up in Nolan Park, there's always potential for something big to happen. But at the same time, if you're not, like, why are Tipperary pressing Limerick and looking so good, and the work rate and everything is applied, and then 2 weeks later in the game when pressing is like at its most crucial, like against Cork, if you press, that's where you, like, because they're evasive, they move around, so if you can press them, then they have to go through, and they're not so good at going through. I mean, they're getting better, but they're not as good. But then you don't press, it's like, geez, it seems like a fundamental, like.
Yeah, I suppose we've done it against Limerick. They done it very well in the middle 8, the middle sector of the pitch. Like, they were firing into tackles there, and they were turning over Limerick. And yesterday was like, Jesus, same recipe again now. Should, as we were talking about there, like, Cork, you need to press up on them. You can't give them that yard or two space, because they will play the short ball even if there's a man 2 or 3 yards off them. Like, so, but Tip didn't do it yesterday, unfortunately. And like, Connolly Han was getting on oceans of ball down there in the first half. Like, we were above in the stand saying, who's following him? Like, or someone just follow him? Like, because like, I think I counted he had about 6 possessions after 4 minutes. Like, and I was taking down the scores in the programme, like, sure, I was running out of space beside his name, marking down points. Like, it was just, he'd run out of field, like, and you just can't give the Cork players that much time and space, and that much grass around the pitch to move into, because, that's what they live for, and they're so good, such good hurlers, and they're so fast. That's what they want, and Tip gave them Ocean's room yesterday, unfortunately, and played into their hands.
there's something I don't know what when it came about, Dotsy, for them, when things were looking so bad for Cork, but it seemed to me yesterday, like there's luck in the game, and you don't put down Cork beating Tipperary down to luck, but at the same time you do control certain conditions to invite luck in. And it seemed to me like Fitzgibbon's goal was a typical example. I think a ball came out, and it might have been Luke Meade came onto it to catch it and dropped it, and dropped down to his right, bounced, and like just at the time Fitzgibbon, their fastest player, is coming onto it, and he goes like a bullet through. And I think when I don't know, was it Ronan or Cahill or who was it when he got it inside, but when he hit the 21 and he was going for the shot, and it was off his left and it was low and it was straight at the keeper, and it should have been probably dealt with, but it looked like to me from the angle behind the goal that one of the tip backs ran straight across at that time, and maybe he just lost the flow of the ball, and it was such a sequence of good luck.
Yeah.
But they have changed something and kind of invited that luck in a little bit.
Yeah, well, in regards to Dara Fitzgibbon, he's probably the one guy nearly in the country who you want in that scenario. And what Paudie is touching on there in regards to the physicality, to stop Cork, you have to stop that. And I suppose, from my point of view, I think that nearly needs to be stopped at source there. Like once Dara Fitzgibbon gets onto that, he doesn't even take it in his hand, right? So he's carrying the ball, and Cork have been doing this all year, even throughout the league. They have been just attacking space, looking for goals, seeking goals, looking for goals, and he didn't even take the catch. So if a Tipperary player came to him, he had the extra touch to try and take him on or whatever. But look, I think fortune favours the brave, and he just seen the space and he carried. So if a player comes to him, he knows there's somebody inside that he can pop it inside and create that goal chance as well. Now, I think it was Ronan possibly came across, as you said, but look, Ronan, he probably had to, he's seen the shot coming, so he was literally trying to just block it, so that's a little bit unlucky. But as I said, Dara Fitzgibbon maybe, had the courage to keep attack the space all the way through, and went for the juggler and got the goal, so it was obviously a phenomenal lift for Cork, and he's done that. We've seen him even in the league semi-final against Kilkenny, something similar. He's always sniffing around. Once he gets that break, he's gone. So he's probably not finding that as easy against the likes of Limerick, who are bringing that physicality around there. He's not
putting them onto the back foot.
Putting them onto the back foot. Even
if
if a little drag there by the guy who's supposed to be picking up the awareness that can't let him pick up this momentum here. You can talk about other players going to him and cutting him out, but if he picks up the momentum, he's hard to stop. So initially, I think if you can stop him around the middle, getting on that, even if you're giving him a shove or something, stop that momentum of coming into your stride. Because
a little bit of cynicism.
I would think so. I would think so, because he's the best guy in the country at coming forward like that. So whoever's picking him up at source, can you just be aware if the ball is breaking to just be kind of goal side and just stopping. Potentially stopping that. But brilliant play from Dara Fitzgibbon.
What are the conditions? Do you remember going through a period where things are falling like that, like where things are just working really well for you, and what are you doing to invite those conditions in? Like, what's the shift in application that, like, we'll say Cork have obviously undergone something, they've changed something. And I remember, you remember different times where the game is just, it's like you feel like you're kind of orchestrating it, but still on the break. Like I remember we played Kilkenny in an under-21 game in Nolan Park, and only that I saw it, I wouldn't believe it. Tommy Welch was cornerback, and cornerbacks can be kind of out of the play. The first 8 balls that went into the full back line, no matter where they went, far side of the field, his side of the field, or to the full back, he came out with the first 8 balls, and I always felt that he played the game in a particular way that the ball almost followed him around at times, So I'm wondering what are you doing to invite those conditions in, like, or how does it come about that the flow of the game is just with you, and in Tipperary are right there, but it's just they're a fraction off it, like.
Yeah, I suppose if you look at, Conor Lahan is a good example of it there, as Paudie's talking about in the first half. Anything he touched, he just looked like he wanted the ball, and he was just in that zone. And look, you speak about getting into that zone. It's probably not every day it comes as easy as that. And look, the ball has to break for you. A certain element, the ball has to be coming into your path and into your direction. And I think the Cork players are very, they're cohesive unit when they get going, and they're well in sync with each other, and they can create them sort of opportunities for each other. Conor Lehane was on the end of them obviously as well, and I seen even Kieran Kingston coming out straight after the game and giving him huge credit and just saying, look, straight away he needs to do that the next day again. So look, Conor Lehane, if he gets any little sniff of an opportunity, he'll score, and he was revelling in the game yesterday, and he wanted the ball, and he was flicking it into his hand. He was going to create stuff anytime the ball came at him. You could just see it. You could see it off him. Look, I suppose the exact science of it, I don't know, but players will come into their groove at different parts of the game as well, and obviously in that first 35 minutes.
Well, you've been you're in management and have been in management as well. So how are you trying to create those conditions for players to kind of slip into?
I think you're just trying to create an atmosphere in the group that they're free to get out and really go at it and express themselves as much as possible. So that might sound a bit vague, but I think ultimately that's what you want, and you want them you want players to get out there and show what they can do and express their talents as well. Maybe if they're defenders,
different story.
Well, yeah, and defenders obviously are well able to hurl and score as well. So, but I mean, I suppose that's the ultimate. You want players just showing that how showing all their attributes and getting to the level that they can, and and maybe creating that environment. And look, Cork, as you said, they've struggled a little bit with in the first couple of games, but I think they're a serious team, and they're just going to keep coming. They've had knockbacks, but the last year or two, they've been in All-Ireland finals, they've been thereabouts as well. So I would certainly think they're going to be coming strong now after the confidence built up now the last couple of games.
What did you see there, Paudie? What were Cork and what was Lehane doing? What was his movement like that he was getting on that much ball, off the ball? How was he moving in the field? I know you'd be following the play, but
yeah, I was actually trying to follow myself because I couldn't get over how much possessions he was getting, and he was wherever the ball was dropping, really he was there. But I think he was kind of playing. He was wearing number 12, I think, but he started inside in the corner. And he'd sit up in the corner for a puck out, but then as the ball was pucked out, he'd just go floating. It was like he had a free roll and basically just go wherever you want to get on the ball. I'd say it looked like he was told, and he done it down to T, and that was the frustrating thing from Tipperary point of view. I felt that we didn't really follow him. We were it looked like he was being passed over to another player, responsibilities passed over. Someone should have just nailed him and followed him wherever he went. And again, that was disappointing from Tip's point of view. And
were they doing that? Was it zonal? Was they kind of leaving him off a little bit, or was he being tailed? He was definitely being tailed at a distance. I mean, because he was getting space.
He went deep a nice bit, so he kind of lost his marker. I'd say his marker, I couldn't even tell you who was marking him because there was different lads
picking him up
at times. But he used to go deep, and I think the lads were letting him off a bit. Whereas they were still caught no man's land because the protection still wasn't there. Example would have been obviously Fitzgibbon's goal that he ran through the whole way. There was no one there. Lads were taken out of positions. Whereas if you were pressing up, like we were spoke about there a few minutes ago, as regards Lehane, these lads, obviously one man has to sit back to mind the house because you can't leave it open for the likes of Fitzgibbon to run through. And there was other scenarios in the second half too where Hardy went through a few times. That the whole thing was just opened up, and that was just kind of a poor setup and from Tipperary's point of view. But yeah, he gave an exhibition of losing his marker, find himself in different positions all over the field yesterday, and wherever the ball was dropping in the Cork forward line, there was just Lehane was getting on the end of it, and just one of them days for him that, his dandler was up and, confidence was up, he got a good start, and he just went on from there, and for the likes of him and a lot of the Cork players, you can't just give them that bit of confidence, because if they get going like that, they can momentum behind him, and the Cork crowd got behind him, and there was just that surge, but came up and they just had it, and they blew Tip out of the water after the first 15 minutes, as we spoke about there.
And the work rate levels, I think, as well, even from the forwards, I think they're kind of demanding that off them, and initially if they get that, I think the rest kind of, if they're in that zone where they're willing to work, and the rest kind of can flow after that as well, so.
I actually think to be interesting to see what Cork come out in the All-Ireland stage now, because Tip were so disappointing yesterday. They didn't lay a finger on them, and you see the way Waterford after going now in the last couple of games, you'd wonder, you know, I'd still have a small question mark over what Cork is going to come
Yeah,
out
yeah.
with. As we spoke
I would
about,
too, definitely,
you know,
yeah.
physicality. If someone comes up with physicality against them, like a Galway or a Limerick again, or you know, Kilkenny, like, you know, what kind of Cork will come out. But at the moment, we can only judge on what we've seen, and they're after changing a bit. As we said, I think they're gone a bit more direct with, you know, feeding the forwards. But as I said, Dotsy was saying there, the work rate definitely has upped a bit from the first two games, I'd say, and the league final.
But the options of Alan Connolly then as well. He's
fair
physical
direct,
in there.
yeah.
You know, they can just horse it into him, and you seen the goal he got, like, he just burrow through. You know, loves the physicality of it.
Yeah,
So
went
that's a
for
bit
it.
of a change maybe from your, you know,
Tim O'Mahony coming in as well.
yeah, Tim O'Mahony.
Some option there as well.
What an option, and not a bad goal or finish as
Yeah.
well. And what a hurler, like, as well.
What a pass in.
Brilliant.
I was just, I was watching the game.
It was like looking at a soccer. Like, it was like a soccer move. Really a true ball in.
Was it
Somebody
Fitzgibbon?
squaring it
Who was
across.
it flicked? I think it was Fitzgibbon's going one man. It almost
flicked it
flicked it back through his
Yeah,
legs.
yeah.
I was sitting watching it in Paudie's again, and I was just, and I don't particularly like Cork because I find them, I struggle with them sometimes.
My
with
father was a Cork man. He was all right.
yeah, look at it. I'm not saying there's a few fine Cork fellas, some good friends who are Cork fellas, but like sometimes with the like when we were dissecting games early on, I suppose it makes sense now because they're after actually they have come on in leaps and bounds. But you're looking at the performances and they were getting. You know, I think it was in the Waterford game. We were looking at Cork all the time, and in the media were looking at Cork all the time. Now that's not their fault, obviously, but there's so much talk about Cork, and I was like, well, look at the performances aren't there, so why are we spending so much time dissecting what they could be doing because they're not doing it? But I suppose now they are doing it, and they're kind of I suppose there's
as you said though, like the big test for them, like the big test is coming, you know, and when a team is really, really like tip or loose, you know, and they're the best team in the country when it's like that, Cork, when it opens up like that. But I suppose that test is coming down the road. Someone will, you know, bring that physicality, and that'll be, you know, something. Personally, I think Cork are, you know, I think they're stealing as they go on.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be ready for it. I would think that they're gaining massive confidence. Like, they could have been gone. It looked like we were nearly writing them off, and sure.
Yeah.
With the whole round robin, it just turns around like that, and you know.
A couple of positional changes too would be massive for them. Like they're after nailing young Joyce at 6. Mark Coleman got wing back. They're a bit more. It suits him a bit better.
Definitely, that's been a huge move. Like even Coleman, still when he's on the ball, like and I'd love to play with a fella like that because it gives you the extra. He gives you that extra minute to make your move or to make a second move from your first move, you know. But so I feel like he gets caught in possession a little bit as well. Like he's really looking to nail that pass, like, and to get him out of the centre, I think has definitely been. I mean, look at it, it's paid huge dividends, so it's obvious to say it, I suppose. But getting him out of the centre has been good. They've shored that up, like. Yeah,
like I suppose your 6 in the modern game has to kind of, you know, man that. The middle of the pitch, doesn't he? And like Joyce had to sit back in there, and like Coleman's a ball player, like, you know, and you know, I suppose a lot of people, Cork supporters can be probably frustrated at times looking at Cork with the passing over and back the field a bit, but
we were all frustrated. I mean, it was just excessive in the first couple of games, like.
Yeah, but now they're still playing them short balls, and they might go over and back maybe once or twice, but what they've changed definitely since the Waterford game is if the ball is on direct, they're going to do the 1 or 2 short passes and then hit the ball direct in, which was what the forwards want. Whereas, as we spoke about a couple of shows back, the Cork forwards are making runs are not making runs because the ball is not coming in. They know it's not going to be delivered in. Like, it was like they were not told to deliver it in for some reason. I don't know, but
does that come from that shift? I remember my father used to always say it was centre back and captain. Like, you know, the centre back was the linchpin of everything. Like, you had your best player at centre back. It was like at under 12, under 14. That was always the way he set it up. Was centre back is the king. Like, you know, he creates the culture. And with Mark Coleman, the culture with Mark Coleman is perfect passes and taking taking it to the nth degree and sometimes too far, and they were definitely taking it too far. And then you put Joyce in there, and it's a little bit more route one where it's necessary, like, and all of a sudden then that kind of creates the culture around where they are releasing the ball off an awful lot quicker, and it's been much more effective for them.
Yeah, and I'd say moving Coleman to 7 and having Joyce there at 6, but Mahoney then Tim O'Mahony was number 5, and he's very attack minded. He's only more, as we've probably seen the last 2 games, forwards might actually suit him better. and they've Damien Cahalane back wing back now, and he's probably obviously more defensive minded, and I think structurally at the back they're a bit better. But a lot of it too is their work rate levels have upped, as Dotsy was saying, like all over the pitch, and it's making it easier for Joyce to sit back and mind the house, as they say, and let the other players then push on. And but yeah, definitely since I suppose they had to change their mentality after the first. Well, I'm including the league final now as well, but the first 2 rounds of the championship, because it wasn't working for them.
They had Coleman sweeping as well.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, it just seemed over the top, maybe, as in dropping him back, covering the whole time. And it was probably after what happened to them in the All-Ireland final. Yeah. It was like they set out at the start of the year, we need to watch this, we need to protect this. So I think the shackles are off a little bit there, and they're trusting lads a bit more defensively. But like, look at the subs as well. They came on, like Melrick came on, wasn't it? Jack O'Connor, Shane Barrett, Tim O'Mahony. Like, so there's a serious squad there as well, lads to come in. And as you said, O'Mahony adds a whole different dimension, horsing him up into the full forward line as well. And lads won't be afraid to pop the ball into him, and something could come off that. And he's obviously got great skills as well from his finish.
Clare are making use of that. Westmeath did actually as well, in fairness to him, to diversify essentially. Like, you've got that option with Tim O'Mahony up there to go along, and the ball can be held up. Like, you'd fancy him to hold it up a little bit longer, but even if whether he does or he doesn't, the fact that you have the out, I think, creates a little bit more space and time on the ball to try and be a little bit more inventive with your passing, because you know in the back of your head, I can go high here because he's in there. So it's to have the option of that creates the freedom to do route one, like your main game plan, because you've got at least something to lean back on.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think even when we're up in the stands watching the game, you nearly want, as we said, we're getting frustrated with Cork earlier on in the year, passing it too much. You nearly roar and just hit the ball up. So teams, I think, are getting to that point of, okay, we need to have that option. And I think from a hurling perspective, just from viewing the game, it's nice to see the ball being horsed in there and lads fighting for it. And as we spoke about there last week, is that the amount of goals that have come off, like balls just been hit in basically, and breaks and causing a bit of carnage in the defence. Like,
Alan Connolly's after adding new dimension. He's that, like, he still is able to make the runs left and right, and he's very fast. But if the ball does come in, long, he's well able to fight for it, and even if he doesn't win it, he's keeping it in there a bit. He's
good in the break too.
He's a bit different to the other types of forwards to have the likes of Shane Kingston, Lee Hand. These lads are roving around the field, picking off points, but he's inside, he's manning that square, and he's still able to make the runs left and right, but that out ball is there, and he's very good, and I think he's proven it there the last 2 games too, that he's an eye for goal in as well, and himself and O'Mahony there are definitely a bit different to the other Cork forward that they have all over the pitch.
Yeah. Robbie O'Flynn as well, he provides something else. From a Tipperary perspective, it might be a leap, but 2018 didn't go so well for you, and then he turned that around fairly quickly, and 2019 was 2019. Is 2023 somewhere to look forward to for Tipperary, or is there a bit of dread? Like, is there a bit of uncertainty as to the direction you're going in, or how are you feeling this morning about it?
Optimism wouldn't be great this morning now, to be honest with you, but yeah, there's a lot of soul searching to be done, to be fair. I'd say a couple of the players may have to change their mindset a bit, in all honesty. A bit of work to be done in the background, probably for management team as well, but
mindset, what's the mindset shift? What would help in terms of mindset?
I suppose, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of change this year, and a lot of pressure probably on. Look, I kind of feel sorry for the management team in the way they came in. There was a lot of change, a lot of players, there was probably 6, 7, 8 players gone from last year's panel, we'll say. I suppose the pressure and the eyes were on the new management team coming in, especially after Liam Sheedy leaving, and then a lot of the younger lads were getting their opportunities. So look, it's tough going, and championship hurling is, there's no one's going to be, say sorry for anything. During championship, it's hard going, and I suppose, look, hopefully the experience will stand to him this year. For the last few matches that has gone, it's not a pretty or nice experience, but look, use it and move on. But as I said, a lot of lads probably won't be happy with their performances this year, and you'll be hoping that the break might, re-energise them, and hopefully there'll be that shift or change in mentality that is needed to get Tipperary back competing in Munster next year.
Yeah, I was looking at, I saw an Instagram story this week of Kobe Bryant talking about failure, like how he dealt with. And I didn't get the sense that he was preaching about it. It was just like this was it's like the attitude that just formed inside of him at some stage in his life. Maybe it seemed like from when he was a young fella, and it was like that the moment of failure. If you take that moment of failure into the next day, or the following day, or the following year, that's failure. It's like the moment of being beaten or of making a mistake isn't the failure. The failure is in carrying that notion of failure with you. That's what failure is. Whereas if you take that as, this is okay, where did it go wrong? What do I have to do to improve things? That becomes a success. And he was looking back over his life of those moments being successes as opposed to failures. It seems to be, that it'd be kind of that'd maybe be the mentality that the Tip lads might.
It can be disappointing as well, though. I suppose fair enough if you're losing or failure, whatever way you want to call it. But I suppose if you're performing, maybe if you're performing, and as you said, like if the Tip lads maybe were reaching the aggression levels and the work rate levels that they were against Limerick, you could live with that, and I suppose it's a bit easier to process then and gear up. But I suppose it can be a bit deflating then, and as you said, it's hard to process it more than if you're losing convincingly. And I'm sure the Tipperary players obviously are disappointed with the some of their displays, and that's maybe, as I said, it's a bit easier when you're kind of obviously they have a lot of new players coming into it as well, but it's a bit easier when you're reaching them high levels, and maybe you can accept it a little bit more and process it. Maybe it's a bit easier to kind of move forward as well. But I suppose they'll be disappointed with the level of performances.
It's just a manner of the two defeats, we'll say, to Clare and to Cork, and they're both home games in Thurles as well, where we would have always been fairly confident no matter who came to Thurles, we'd have the upper hand in them. But it's the manner of them two defeats, and I suppose just we're talking about the young lads and getting the experience. It's just the things like structuring the pitch and the likes of Fitzgibbon's goal and the other scenarios yesterday, and that has happened in the Clare game as well. That that's the thing you want to be improving on, or that's maybe next year moving forward. Right, lads, we'll play our own whatever way we want to play. Like it was like the game was always being dictated to Tipperary this year, and that was the disappointing thing. So look, there's loads of areas they have to work on, and you'd hope that the experience, as I said, will stand to them. But yeah, it's just the manner of the two defeats and being at home. Like it nearly suit. Like our best performances were below in Walsh Park and below in the Gaelic grounds for an hour against Limerick. Like it's just disappointing at home in Thurles, where we'd always be fairly confident that I think that's what it'll hurt the boys most, as well as losing is difficult and it's hard to take, but it's just the manner of the performances, the two home games. Like
the Clare Waterford game, I mean, it was too much kind of one way traffic to dissect the game in any shape or form. But one of the things that you'd be wondering about definitely is the rhythm of the year and the ability to plan for the rhythm of the year in terms of what you're looking for. Like Limerick are obviously approaching it in a different way to Tipperary, and same as Wexford are approaching it differently to Galway because they're at different stages of the development. Is it too simplistic to put it down to that for Waterford, to say like you just got your rhythm a little bit? You might have been peaked too soon.
I think what we're hearing now is teams aren't even going to turn up for the league next year. So I don't know. It's a very hard one. Like the Dublin Hurlers, I suppose I was looking at closely throughout the year as well, and they were in the Walsh Cup. They nearly set out their stall very early, and they were flying it early on.
Yeah.
So they maybe hit a bit of a slump as well. So I just the one time as a player when we had won the Leinster in 13, and I suppose I was into my 30s, and I was kind of saying, Jesus, I haven't got much left here. Well, maybe we're close to an All Ireland here. I'm going to throw everything at this. And I remember just being everything, food, fitness. I got as fit as I've ever been, and running around, winning long distance runs, which was unheard of. But I suppose from a personal level, I remember, flying early on, Walsh Cup, a couple of league games, and then I remember hitting that slump a little bit, and did hit it and was struggling for form a bit. Then it came back or whatever, but yeah, I suppose the reality of it is the league is the league. The format, the way it's laid out, is. It's coming thick and fast. It's down the road from the league, so we all know what the most important one is. So maybe it's taking the edge off the league a little bit and the importance of it as well. But yeah, you'd have to say that teams will certainly be looking at that, I think, from next year as well. And there is question marks over, It's a hard one to call.
In some respects, it nullifies the league, because you'll say that everybody's are about championship and that's it. But then, in some senses, it makes the league more important because it's actually about timing. It's obviously all about timing. Looking at it, I'm very fond of Liam Cahill as a manager and just as a man, listening to his interviews and that. He seems like a very solid character. And I remember him my brother was infatuated with Liam Cahill when he was a young fella. He had posters up on his wall, and he used to have loads of hurlers, but he loved Liam Cahill, loved his style. So I always have a bit of affection for him. But he came out last week and kind of said players were running on dirty petrol. Like, it was a little bit like, okay, I remember John Myler did it with us after we got bed up in Antrim. He was like, this is your mess now, lads, you get out of it yourselves. Like, it was a little bit like, sometimes at least he did that on the bus with us. He didn't go out and say it anywhere, whereas Liam kind of came out and said it. And if you look at the rhythm of the year, it's not really the play. In some respects, you've to, as a player, like, you're at the start of the year, as you said, like in 2013, and you're going full at it because you're planning your year. But the management, that really is part of their, that has to be part of their strategy. Like, this is how we're setting our year out. This is where we're going to peak. This is like, that's firmly to my mind anyway. It's almost firmly at management's door. So I'd be a bit critical of Liam Cahill for that kind of response, and then the subsequent capitulation of Waterford.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure they'll be looking at it hardly and reviewing it and seeing maybe, can you keep lads, like, potentially can you keep lads maybe fresher? Like, can you mix it up a lot more? And some teams, like, look at Limerick. I think some of the lads early on in the season are playing Fitzgibbon as well.
Yeah.
Limerick, I think, literally weren't afraid to say, here, we don't want to see you at the weekend. You're playing a match there. Obviously they've gone through that. Yeah, they've gone through that phase of nearly winning leagues. When they were starting off, they would have, I'm sure, they had a bit more importance, emphasis on it. But certainly, like, again, going back to Dublin, they use very little players throughout the league. So you would certainly be viewing it as a it's a tight few weeks there. You'd be looking to use as many players as you can, and maybe not afraid to mix it up and vary it up, rather than sticking rigidly maybe to somewhat teams or whatever players you're using. I would personally, I would take that view on it, that there should be a bit more variety maybe, and it is an opportunity to give players, who are on the panel, who are putting in the same amount of work. Well, look, obviously teams want to, come next year when the league comes again, we'll probably be talking about the league like it's the be all and end all. It's coming around, or who's in form, who's not in form. But look, once
if you don't trust your panel, like, that's the kind of, if I was 20 and you see 17 going out, it's the same 17 all the time. Like, okay, you have a responsibility to break the 17. There's no doubt about that. Like, and some managers do it that way, and it's like, we're putting our stall out, and if you want to break in, you'll be in, and if you're not, you're out. Like, so I never had great pity on subs from that point of view. I was like, well, look, at, like, this is you have to get in. It's not anybody else's responsibility. But the game has kind of changed now with the speed of the league coming into the championship, and it does send a clear message. If you're just going with 17 or 18 all the time, or even 20 to 30, you're like, well, I don't know. Like,
I think
you need your chance. Like,
Tip did maybe they were mixing it up a fair bit throughout the league. They were kind of.
I don't know if you can blame the league too much for Waterford. Like, every team is doing the same thing through the league, I think, anyway, that they're training hard. Like, no one goes out to say, right, we're not taking this match serious. There's no manager going to their team, lads, this Sunday's match, look, we'll just go up, turn up, whatever. Like, they're training hard throughout the league. Like, Limerick trained hard through the league, probably got their pre-season done, and look, they just didn't have the energy, whatever, through the matches at the weekend, and their form wasn't great in the league, but they were obviously eyeing up that they're getting the bank of work done through the league, and they give the matches their all, but they're obviously not going to be sharp or a bit sluggish through the hard training. I think every team is the same, and it's just Waterford came out on top. Like, I think this is probably, I know I read something there this morning that, like, Waterford have only one win out of this round robin since it started back in 2018.
They've only 12 or something, is it?
They've only won one game out of the round robin series. Like, so maybe there's something mentally there, when it comes to it. I don't know, but the only match they won was the Tip match this year, I think, out of the 3 years of the round robin, and like, I don't even think they won their Munster Championship match last year. I think Clare bet them in that game. So, like, maybe there's something mentally there that when it comes to it, I don't know. But look, I don't think you can play like every time we played the league, we never had we had a lot of poor leagues, but we were going out and we were giving our all on a Sunday. It's just the body wasn't able to to take you to where you wanted to go, maybe because you're training hard throughout the week as well.
But you're trained. That's the thing, I suppose, and it almost be an insult of a question to you, Paudie. But I feel for the two of us, it might be a little bit different. Would you take if you're looking back on a year like Waterford's year this year when you were with Dublin, and maybe it was 2007 or maybe in 2014, we'll say, after you had a successful campaign, would you look back and say, well, we won a national title? Like it's maybe it's more than you might usually win. Like even though you've limped out of the championship, you've still won the league. Like
I suppose we had got it though. We had got it in 2011.
Yeah,
like that had been a huge step for us. And by Jesus, we were taking the league serious. We hadn't won anything in a long time. So for that, it was a great step, and that was probably a stepping stone then for us. Not that we weren't taking the league serious the following years as well, but look, that probably led into us and gave us that bit of belief to go on and win a Leinster. So I suppose step by step then.
So depending on what stage you're at, so Waterford are at a stage where the league isn't enough for them. Like it's to be turning performances like that in the championship.
They were being spoken of, and I had them up there as All-Ireland contenders. Well, a team that was going to somehow challenge.
But I suppose they didn't. But they weren't necessarily. Do you know, everybody else bar Derek Honan, who had no time for it. Everybody else was saying that, but for them themselves, like I don't know were they saying it, you know?
I'd say they were expecting to be thereabouts after a couple of years of the COVID, the two championships during COVID. Like they got to the final and semi-final. Sure, Limerick was the only team to. So I think they were definitely thinking long term. They were expecting to be the latter stages of the. And I think the league was a good stepping stone for them.
Yeah,
but like. Not to disrespect the league or anything now, but like I'd still say they'd swap the league title for even a Munster title, like, or even to progress.
Oh, I definitely would for a Munster for sure.
But even to progress to the All-Ireland series and give themselves a chance, I'd say Liam Cahill would definitely swap it. I'd say, like they were saying, Liam Cahill needed to get silverware this year in his third year's management, but like now he's out of championship in the 23rd and 4th of May, like, so like, what's the league going to mean for him at the end of the day? I don't know, like, but.
What are you thinking? I suppose it's different maybe where Tipperary are at the moment, but I remember very distinctly being in Croke Park for the Wexford Tipperary semi-final. It was quarter-final or semi-final 2 years ago, and we were 5, maybe 6 up, and you maybe lost a man, and things were looking very good. At half-time, things were looking very good. And I was up with maybe Radio na Gaeltachta or something, and we went in, we were up in the kind of press area, and I saw Nicky English and Ken Hogan and these lads were in there, and actually I was still kind of delighted to see him anyway, but I was looking at him as well, and there was light, like, and I thought they'd be worried. I thought they'd be, like, I said, we have this, like, we're looking really good here. But there's something in the longevity of victory from winning so much, from being so used to winning. We're coming in thinking, I was thinking, we have this, but the game wasn't over. There was still a half to play, and the lads were as relaxed as be damned. Whereas I was like, you should be worried, but they weren't worried. And I wonder with Waterford, I wonder what, I suppose, Tipperary or Cork or Kilkenny might be thinking when Waterford are either putting themselves up or everybody putting them up as, the second behind Limerick. But it's like, hang on there, like you have to earn those chips as well. Like, that's not how it works. In the overall balance of things, that's not how it works. Like you have to be at it for a long time before you can get that kind of confidence over 2 performances.
Yeah, maybe we were all going to be carried away with them from their league performances. I think, like when I just read that this morning about their 1 win in 3 round robins, then I was like, geez, are they after earning this? Maybe you have to go and earn this and get through even as the third team in Munster and progress into the All-Ireland series that way. Like, and fair enough, they got to the latter stages, the last 4 and the last 2 championships, but that was through the change with the COVID and that. But like, we all got a bit carried away. But like, they definitely, like, they've brilliant players, and the league didn't lie in a way that they were one of the top teams in the country at that stage, and we can only judge on what we were seeing in front of our eyes. And like we were saying, like, if they keep this going through the championship, they're definitely going to get through to as one of the top 3 teams anyway. Yeah, and. But it's just like they lost a bit of their energy and their probably appetite in the Munster Championship. That's what it looked like, that they just weren't bringing that to the field.
What causes that? Like, how do you lose appetite in the middle of a championship like that? Like, is it the for maybe it's an insult to him, I don't know, but it feels like anyway for a lesser team, for a team who's not winning all the time, like where Limerick are at the moment, or for a Tipperary or Cork and Kilkenny based on tradition. When you're in that pole position, you don't get carried away in that pole position, or you don't really take any enjoyment from it. It just seems to be about maintaining that standard, and the appetite seems to grow. Like, but is it a case of Waterford like enjoying everybody saying that you're the second best team, and so you stop working as hard, or?
Yeah, maybe they listen to too much outside noise. We don't know. Like, and only the players will be able to tell us that themselves. But I certainly know that Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens, like, I know them from the club scene and underage back at home in Tip. Like, they certainly weren't going to rest on what they've done in the league, or like, they're very motivated men and very passionate, and you can see it in the silent. They're always driving you on, like, and even if you're scoring, like taking Austin Gleeson for all the world, if he's shooting the lights out, they'd still always be on your back, pushing you. Don't be, don't get lackadaisical or anything like that. And like, it just didn't feed into the players on the field. Didn't look like, especially the Cork game, and obviously yesterday as well against Clare. Like the Limerick game, they pulled it back near the end, but they were still. It was just that. Now, I suppose we have to respect the opposition teams in the Championship too, are obviously going up their levels from the league as well, and they're going to be a lot fresher. But just they didn't have that sharpness or just that workman like that they had in the league. And now, as we said,
they didn't have the appetite for the battle. It seemed they lost in 2 games. They lost the battle. That appetite for the battle.
The Cork game was very disappointing for their point of view. Yeah, because they had that break between the Limerick game and the Cork game, and you could say to yourself, "This is it now, lads. If we build ourselves up to this Cork game, get the result here on our own field in front of our own crowd, we're through." Like, and they just were flat. I know Cork had something to fight for as well, but Jeannie Waterford didn't have what we expected, that fire and that appetite for a massive championship match. It just didn't seem to come out that day.
And Liam Cahill had been all week for that match. He'd nearly been building it up because he knew the importance of it as well.
He knew definitely, yeah.
So it turned out that that was the big one. Yeah, I know. Fair enough, Limerick, and we say maybe they got a couple of late goals that masked maybe their performance that night, but they still, expecting a huge one, and I'd say that was the deflating moment in their season. It's probably turned out to be anyway. Yeah. As in knocking, that Cork game. Yeah. It's
nearly at the point with when you play against Limerick, I'm like, you feel the teams can just they're afforded the comfort of knowing that regardless you're kind of okay. Like, if you get beaten well by them, you're kind of beaten by the best team ever, but so you can kind of throw off whatever shackles that are there and throw the kitchen sink at them, and that's why we're getting such great games against Limerick. And then you'll say like, okay, well, Waterford are doing so well because they came within a few points of Limerick or whatever. But it seems like where the championship is being really played for those teams at the moment is against each other. Like, it has to be for the Cork, or it has to be for Tipperary, it has to be for those games that kind of appetite has to be there. Whereas with Waterford it was the opposite. Like, I don't want to give them too much time anyway, because look at, I think that they're out of the championship, and they're a great team. Like, it's not to say that they're not going to go places in the future. Absolutely. But they limped out of it. Like, so
it's bonkers. A couple of shows ago we were talking about how poor Cork were and how flying at Waterford were. Now it's a total flip of a kind there.
Tells you what we know about hurling. I don't want to frame it too much in terms of Munster. We have been looking at the games, and there is something definitely about Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Thurles now. Like yesterday, even after 20 minutes in particular, Tipperary, Cork, and then you go to like Galway, Dublin, and even in parts Wexford, Kilkenny, and I wonder, is there any of the Munster teams fearing at all any of the Leinster teams now? We were talking about how Cork maybe might be testing in a very different way against a Galway or a Kilkenny, and I'd say probably the same would go for any of the Munster teams, with maybe the exception of Limerick, because they're just that little bit ahead. I suppose Dublin, we'll close out the last 20 minutes with Wexford, but we'll give a little bit of time to Dublin. It was expected. I kind of feel it was that's what I expected kind of happened. It's just not quite there, I don't think, to take on a Galway in Pearse Stadium. Like, harsh on them, 6 points after 3 games, regardless of who they played. You feel like they're in a good position, but
I suppose it's very disappointing. Like, I suppose there was a sense of I didn't get down to it. So Paudie be giving out to me for not going down, supporting the lads.
He might do. Yeah. On Twitter,
I couldn't make it down. But yeah, look, they were. I suppose there was probably an inevitability about it, you know. And they've beaten Galway the last 2 years, so we have a good record against Galway. But maybe obviously a different challenge down there. And I suppose you're talking about maybe the previous week losing by 17 points, and you know a certain element of deflation there. And you've only got 7 days to try and really lift it for that as well. But look, that's the beauty of it as well, and that gave them a chance to kind of come back. I knew there was a chance, a big chance Wexford could do Kilkenny, you know.
Did you? Yeah.
I did. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have been shocked by it. You know, they've had a good record, reasonable the last few years as well. And I think they were kind of gearing, they knew they were gearing up for that one from a few weeks previous. But from a Dublin perspective, very disappointing. I suppose a couple of minutes into the second half, I think they had a strong wind in the first half and they went down by a point. They went down by a point, but once Galway clipped on a few points, they were just able to keep them at bay, and they were, Dublin were not offering a threat, an attacking threat, and they were, it was similar to the second half against Kilkenny. It was very stop-start. I did 2 games on, and there was a lot more intensity in the Wexford Kilkenny. There was a lot of frees in Dublin Galway, so it was easy enough to keep swapping over to the other one, to be honest with you. But look, it was just they were just hanging in, and there, as I said, there was a sense of an inevitability. That didn't look like a team who were really, psychologically driven to, progress and want to progress into, on into the championship as well. And, I suppose they ultimately they've been knocked out, and Wexford obviously got the win, which caused them to be out. So, look, they'd be extremely disappointed. They had obviously beaten Leinster and Westmeath and gotten the good win down in Wexford. But the two big games were there for them, Kilkenny and Galway. They were the 2 big kind of tests that were coming. And unfortunately, we weren't good enough, and there can be, obviously Maddie will be very disappointed, he'd be well respected in Dublin and a well liked guy as well, but he'll be disappointed, and I suppose it's a disappointing exit, to not get out of the group as well. And look, there's probably a lot of question marks in regards to where players are playing, and could players play in different positions and stuff like that. And they seem devoid of belief at times as well, and confidence. And maybe that is an inner belief thing amongst the players. I don't know.
Well, there's certain parameters, I suppose, that qualify that in some respects. I mean, there's definitely a conversation about Conor Whelan and where he stands as one of the top, maybe behind Tony Kelly, one of the top forwards in the game. Like he took Owen O'Donnell for 5 points, which is, doesn't happen to.
No. And in fairness, Owen O'Donnell was quite strong in the first half.
I mean, look at the amount of ball that was going in the space he was getting taken. Yeah. But on the other side of it, in the forwards, I think I don't know if I could barely commit to it, but I read it this morning that they scored 1 goal in the championship so far, and to me that illustrates there's you have to have a bit of an appetite for punishment for goals. Like if you're going for goals, you have to be willing to go in.
And look, they haven't looked like scoring a goal either.
No.
So there's
Donald Burke had a ball, and I know he got a point off it. And that's he's been prolific at scoring points. But I don't know, he was crummy, came in off his left shoulder, and he was the whole way through. And he popped the pass and he took the point. And I thought, there's where your lack of goals comes from, with decisions like that. Like when the overlap, every other team at the moment, the overlap is like straight through. Like and they were taking the points, and okay. In
fairness, they've just been tipping along basically. I don't know, but Donald has been exceptional in regards to point scoring as well. But he'll probably have to try and evolve his game into bringing that in where he can kind of go by players and create them real goal scenarios where he's taking on a player, drawing a man, or going himself. So I suppose that's the next step for him, is to evolve. He's a beautiful striker of a ball, can whip the ball over the bar from anywhere, and he's kind of been the go-to guy obviously for Dublin as well. But look, a lot of lads will be extremely disappointed with their performances, and it is disappointing from an overall Dublin perspective, Gizzy. I suppose things probably have to be looked at as well, and I suppose where we're going in hurling, and mention of 2013, like there's a lot of work gone into the hurling or whatever the last 20 years, and maybe one year we were potentially a candidate. 1 or 2 years we could have gone and won an All Ireland. The other years, you know, we haven't been, and you know we're you know, we're probably ranked whatever 9th or 8th or 9th the last few years as well. So it's going to take something different to try and change that. You know,
when the football structures are so, it seems so clean, and you look at, we'll say, the Limerick underage, that kind of academy kind of, you know, preparation is to go through. Where is Dublin Hurling on that scale?
Well, I suppose, like, say at underage, at minor and 20s, even this year I was a little bit involved with the 20s. Like, you have players opting off the 20s panel to play football, which is absolutely fine, and that's their prerogative. You know, there's no issue with that. But I suppose you need to try and create an environment where, you know, guys are all they're into hurling. They want to play hurling, you know. So you're talking about the development squads and stuff like that. So can you create it at a younger age where you have them maybe closer knit and potentially, you know, feeling a part of something coming up? And look, success brings success as well. Yeah. But look, it's disappointing. As I said, I work in Dublin GAA, and like there's huge work goes into club development. And massive work, and that's the bedrock of everything, which is rightly so. And it mightn't all necessarily be around the playing of the games. You know, there's development for people in all aspects of, you know, club development,
community development.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But from an elite hurling, you know, from an elite top level hurling, that's a different animal. Like, that's a different level to get to. You know, and we haven't really got to that. So it's going to take something different, I think. You know, the group of players that are there now, a lot of time for them, a lot of good hurlers, didn't do themselves justice, I wouldn't think, the last couple of games. You know, I wouldn't be writing them off as in they can't go on a potential run and, you know, do something. But I'm just for something sustainable to be built where you've got Dublin, you know, capital city. I'd like to think, you know, huge numbers playing the game, should be up competing regularly in All Ireland semi-finals and finals. You know, to build something sustainable like that is probably, you know, going to take, you know, a bit of work and looking at maybe all aspects of development to get to that elite level of inter-county hurling on a sustainable basis.
To get to that Wexford level, I know what you mean.
That's the one.
But for something like that, it often takes, I know you have to develop younger players and bring them up through the development squads and that, but like we were talking about appetite, and maybe for that mind shift change kind of thing of mentally of, you know, getting away from the football, getting lads interested in hurling, you know, not picking football over hurling. Maybe it might just it'll still take Dublin to win a Leinster senior final or something, just to get the hurleys back into the lads' hand instead of picking up the football in the day, and, you know, get the interest back. You see with Limerick, they got the breakthrough, and now I'm working down Limerick, you see everyone's going around with a hurley in their hand. Whereas before it was a rugby ball. Because of Munster, like. But now it just takes maybe for this the players that the younger lads are looking at in the television every day or every Sunday, for them just to go on a bit of a run, as Dotsy said there, or get that small bit of success, whether even it is a National League or a Leinster Championship, and then the young lads are getting the appetite. Yeah, we want to be like them again, and maybe that's small. You have to develop obviously younger age groups, but then it'll still take the senior lads in the county to help that shift change it.
Yeah, and you're working against obviously the success of the football as well. I won't make it back across the border into Wexford if we don't get onto the Wexford Kilkenny game. It was a brilliant game. Like, the hurling at times wasn't brilliant, but it was certainly, like, it was in the melting pot, and it was down to the last day, and we were kind of always looking, probably in some respects. I was a bit frustrated with Wexford from the point of view of, like, if you can do that against Kilkenny, like, why can't you do it? Why can't you go up and beat Westmeath? Like, why can't you churn out a better performance maybe against Dublin? They were very lacklustre, whereas yesterday they brought it all, like, and it worked well. I thought I suppose you're looking at the papers and, you know, you've seen online, and there was a huge amount of talk about Lee Chin, but I thought Wexford were an awful lot bigger than Lee Chin yesterday. I thought Lee plays his role, like, he plays his role and he plays it very well. But I thought around the field, like, maybe not as in the forwards as much as the backs, but I thought that they performed very well, like, and they had the appetite. There's no doubt about that. Yeah,
definitely. Like obviously Lee Chin stood out as well. He had a lot of big moments in the game, like, you know, inspirational moments.
It's the moments, yeah.
But like, Liam Ryan came up the field, got a fantastic long range score, like, real leadership there. Damien Rick had a fantastic game, and he had that big moment as well of blocking TJ's.
It was an incredible passage of play.
Yeah, you know, like, you you could see it after that. Then the Wexford players, they won I think Mark Fanning won the free, or someone won the free straight after that, and you could just see the body language, the energy in them. They were well up for it. Like, but like you said, it was definitely more than the Lee Chin show. Like, he was outstanding, but he had a lot of people backing him up. A lot of players backing him up on Saturday, and they're really, really, like we spoke about, I suppose, the Waterford Cork game a few weeks ago, that you expected Waterford to come something big. Even maybe Dublin against Kilkenny in Parnell Park, you were expecting Dublin to come with something big because that was the game. Wexford pinpointed this game obviously because they had to win it out, after the last 2 weeks, but they did bring it, and going into Nolan Park, not an easy place to play. They brought the fire, the appetite that we all spoke about, hunger, and you could see it in their performance and the body language of the players, and got them the right result.
They throw the whole momentum argument out the window. Brian Lohan is talking about getting the victory for Clare because you want to keep momentum. Momentum's the most important thing. And then Wexford come along and they barely performed 2 weeks in a row. And you're thinking, right, momentum wise, I was thinking last week, I said, how are we going to beat Kilkenny? What would you base thinking you could beat Kilkenny, and then all of a sudden you go out and you serve up a performance like that, like.
Yeah, but look, they have shown performances like that the last few years as well, and they've got some great players, and as you said, defensively, even Simon Donoghue as well, a great game as well. 2 points.
He's brilliant cornerback. Very underrated cornerback. I think he's outstanding. Like there's some very tidy cornerbacks in the game at the moment, but he's certainly one of them. Like
Dee O'Keefe, they dropped him back a little bit as well.
He played that role well. Yeah,
I think Kilkenny were the long ball, there was a good few long balls going in, and it probably played into Wexford's, Matt O'Hanlon there and Liam Ryan. That's the sort of ball them boys would probably like as well, so they managed to get a real grip on Kilkenny there, and obviously grew into it then as well.
I don't know, I thought they played a bit more towards the Davy Fitz style of when he's over, didn't they?
There was a
they were getting everyone back down the field. Now whether it was just pure work rate and appetite to get the ball, but they were getting lads back, surrounding Kilkenny lads, working the ball, running the ball up the field. As Dotsy, you said there, Dee O'Keefe then was sitting in the pocket the whole time. He was the security back there, and everyone else was like Simon Donoghue 2 points. Did Damien Rex score? Did he go up the field? Liam Ryan scored
1 if not 2.
They were flying. The shackles were off. It just reminded me a bit more of when they were playing well under Davy. That freedom, energy just up and down the pitch, and then maybe whether they meant to do it or not, but it was just pure sheer work rate, maybe, I don't know, but they were definitely back to they found that what worked under Davy, and they used it on Saturday, I felt.
And maybe that was something that happened as well. It was like, well, if we're kind of trying something new here and it's not working, it's like, well, let's go back to the thing that we know, because we do know that it works to a point anyway. Like you're going to get wins out of it.
It did seem like that a little
bit.
Like that a little bit. And maybe the players maybe spoke about that, or I'm sure it was an open. But it seemed like they were all kind of No
wonder Davy was bouncing the Sunday game last night.
His own that's his stamp.
But I suppose the big thing is now, will they reproduce that? Because as you said, they've been very. I know they got the draw against Galway even, but they were very lackluster for the couple of games as well.
But I think this is what this is what any of us are looking for. I think in our account. I know we're all competing at different levels in some respects, but really what you want is just if that's what you're capable of. Could you just and don't mind the skill, and if you put balls wide and stuff, that's fine. But just give us that work rate, because we know you can do it. So can you do it? Now I know when you get Kilkenny, the blood rises a bit harder and a bit higher. So it's understandable, but there should be a base performance level like that. A Kilkenny and a Limerick, and often a Tipperary. I feel they don't slip beneath it, whereas we tend to oscillate hugely. Like we go right down, then we come back up and it's 80, and then we're back down to 20. Where does leave Kilkenny for the Paudie Shefflin rematch? Where does that leave Kilkenny? I'd heard talk of them being rated like third still, or still going to be in the mix for the Ireland, but I don't know. I'm not sure that
I think there'll be there was kind of a lot at stake for Wexford there, and I'm not saying Kilkenny, if they'd have lost, they could have been potentially out, but I suppose, I think, I'd imagine anyway, they'll come with a big display. Looking forward to that part 2 anyway. So yeah, I would think that there'll be a hell of it. Back to Kilkenny, I have to mention Murphy's save as well, because I flicked over and I seen it, and I seen Conor McDonald from about a couple of yards out. If I was the keeper, I'd have probably turned my arse to it, to be honest with you. But he lined up, opened up the hurl, and Murphy,
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, but
Unbelievable.
Conor McDonald obviously gave him a glimmer of hope because it was so close to him, but it was just phenomenal. Like,
I don't know. It wasn't that he moved the hurl like in a split second reaction or something. Like he just had the hurl kind of placed there, but the fact that he didn't, which is what probably 99.9% of everybody else in the country would have done. And we all know keepers are a little bit mad anyway, and this they kind of have to be, because he stood up and that's going straight to his body if he stands.
And just,
yeah, it was an incredible save. Yeah. Sure.
I think, going back to the Kenny question there, like, they have 2 losses now in the bounce, don't they? I think, and especially after what happened in Salt Hill the last day, where they maybe felt aggrieved the way the game finished up, with that free. I mean, you're expecting something massive in the Leinster final from them.
Yeah.
Because
is it in them?
They will be under pressure if they don't win. If they don't win that Leinster final, 3 losses in a row. Yeah. The pressure will be on them. But I don't know what it is with the Kilkenny, and is it Brian Cody? I don't know what it is, but I'm still expecting one more big day from them before the year finishes, whether it's a Leinster final or whether it's an All-Ireland quarter or semi-final against a big team. I just have that. It's always there. You're expecting them to come with one more. Like,
picked up the last 2 Leinsters as well. They've beaten Galway. They've beaten Galway as well. Yeah. So if you're asking me, I'd probably fancy them.
Would you against Galway? Yeah.
You'll Lawler, if you get him back, he's missing the last week. He's a massive loss full back. Yeah. He's outstanding. Paudie Walsh didn't start the other day as well. There was
I don't know, it's because of his performance the week before, but
I think Paudie, I think I read something this morning where he was saying that he had a bit of a niggle, but that would be.
He still came on, like, so. Like,
exactly.
if you're fit enough to come on, you're fit enough to start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was it was a feast of games, and we just won't get to them all. There's a little bit of an anomaly in the system now, and we're kind of seeing that clearly. Kerry had a phenomenal win, and then had Carlow do the rest of their dirty work as well, and beating Offaly, and so Offaly lose out in that. But what it means is Tipperary may now play, depending on how the Kerry Antrim game goes. Antrim are definitely the informed team there, so we'll say Antrim winning that. Then Kerry play Tipperary. If it goes the other way, Leinster is open to 6 teams, and so there's a team coming up anyway, whereas in Munster it's not. It's a strange one to kind of.
Yeah, I just can't understand it at all. Like, we'll say if Antrim win.
Do you not want to dilute the capabilities of Munster or something? You might get a bit of criticism about the Munster Championship if there's a few one-sided victories.
Yeah, but look, people might say then, like, if you let Kerry up, then are they, liable to get a few beatings? But like, the Kerry lads will probably, if they win to Joe McDonagh, they want to get the chance to play a Munster Championship hurling.
Yeah, to prepare for it.
Yeah, and like, to have them to go play a playoff against Tip if they do beat Antrim, it's very unfair. Like, let them up, like, and let them compete and see how they get on. Like, and like for Antrim, then they know if they win, they're up. They don't have to worry about playing leash. Like, you know what I mean? So it does. I can't understand it. And then it's a bit unfair on Tip too. Like, do they go training now for 2 weeks? On the off chance, on the chance that maybe Kerry will beat Antrim, and then they have to play the playoff match. It's both unfair, I think, for Tipperary to have the way around, and Kerry. If they win, the reward should be to play Munster Championship hurling. Like.
Yeah, I think any competition that we're talking about, if you win it, you've earned the right to be promoted. So it goes without saying that why wouldn't they be promoted? So look, these things obviously come true, and they're voted.
They
in
do,
or whatever,
we all vote for their own way.
Absolutely.
I think the good news for Kerry is that they're going the right direction anyway, and I think they do want their chance, obviously, to playing against the best teams, but they're heading in the right direction, and they have to be happy with that too. On the other end, coming up into the Joe McDonagh, I want to give a good shout out to the Kildare hurlers as well. I watched that game against Mayo. Jerry Keegan was wing forward and scored 10 points from play. 10 points from play in Croke Park is just some scoring, and they were hotly tipped. And what often happens for a hotly tipped team, Mayo have stolen on them a couple of times before, is they're edgy and they're not quite sure, but obviously on the back of the Naas success, and just being exceptionally well organised and about their business. business. They're about their business, Kildare, you know. So I fancy them to be able to hold their own in Joe McDonough.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, I think they're, you know, we talk about counties. Obviously, hurling is very hard to kind of get up to the grades and up the standards or whatever. But they're certainly a county. They've had a bit of underage as well. They bet Wexford last year in the under-20s as well. There's a lot of work going in there. Like Naas GA club is an absolute monster, you know, and it's kind of Naas or Kildare would be a bit of a commuter town. Like a lot of people moving into Kildare as well, and maybe from the surrounding so-called hurling counties as well. Yeah. So they seem to be generating a lot of their underage teams playing in Kilkenny leagues and stuff like that as well. So they're certainly on the right track, and a county with scope. You know, you'd imagine if the county board get right behind that, there is scope for further development.
Yeah. And then I hadn't even talked about Westmeath and Laois, and I think we can leave it at that, as I think the Westmeath played the championship very, very well. They acquitted themselves exceptionally well, and the game went as they went about their championship. And Laois maybe didn't quite get up there, and I wouldn't have been happy to see Westmeath beaten based on the performance that they given versus the performance of Laois. Do you know, it's like the leaving cert, this big huge test at the end, as opposed to, you know, a few tests along the way to kind of keep things ticking over in that way. You know, this shouldn't all kind of land on this one performance.
It's a bit of a crammer myself.
Yeah, I know, it suited me down to the ground as well.
They've had some year, Westmeath. They've
been
won
outstanding.
Division 2 title, the Kyo Cup, and now they've got the results in the Leinster Championship and they're staying up. So they can be very happy with their championship year.
And they're hurling well. They're hurling well.
If you're a Westmeath hurler now, like Joe Fortune has done a great job there.
He's done outstanding, yeah.
If you're a Westmeath hurler now, like you've got, as you said, you're promoted in the league, so like you're excited already nearly. You know, I know it's a long way off, but you're looking forward to, you know, can we build on that? Can we take a scalp? Can we make the top 3 potentially next year? So it's something to really, you know, if you're a Westmeath player, to gear up for and look for further kind of. And again, they've had underage success as well. They've lots of potential there as well. With hurling as well, and they've proven that with some big underage results the last few years as well. So they're in a nice position to kick on a little bit, maybe. Yeah.
Look, there was loads happening, and we could definitely spend a little bit more time on a few of those games. But thanks very much, Dotsy, for making the trip, the long trip into us, and Paudie for coming up a rain-soaked motorway. I think the weather was changeable on the way up, so thanks very much for making the journey up to us. That's all we have time for now. We could go on for a good while longer, but thanks very much for joining us on the Hurling Hour, and we'll be back. There's a little bit of a break now, but there's plenty to digest and to discuss. We look forward to the Munster finals, and we move on to the other games that separate Munster, Leinster and the different permutations. Thanks very much.